Thank you so much to everyone who's here. My name is Teresa Hebert, and I am the Director of Communications at Quorum, and excited to discuss today with you all leveraging AI in government affairs. A few housekeeping items before we dive in. This webinar is being recorded, so if you have to leave early or you want to share with any of your colleagues, we will be sending that recording out within a day or so of the conclusion of the webinar today. We also will be taking questions at the end, so feel free to throw them in the Q&A box you see below or in the chat, and I will be passing those over to Jonathan to answer at the end. We'll also have a poll available at the end of our session today for folks who are interested in seeing Quorum themselves after our discussion. So feel free, if you are interested, to share with us there, and we will reach out to get a time to show you all what we have here at Quorum. And with that, we will introduce Jonathan. So today we'll be hearing from Jonathan Marks, the co-founder and CTO of Quorum. So Jonathan co-founded Quorum in 2014 with his roommate at Harvard, our CEO, Alex Worth. In his role as CTO, Jonathan directly oversees our product management, engineering, product design, and editorial teams. He's been recognized with a number of accolades, such as the EY Entrepreneur of the Year and one of DC's top 50 technologists, published scientific author, and now lives in Boulder, Colorado with his wife and 2 children, and is the executive sponsor of Quorum's Parents at Quorum group. So Jonathan is an expert on a lot of the technology that powers everything that our tools do, and so is a perfect person here to dive into AI, both in government affairs at large and as well as within Quorum itself. So I will kick it over to him.
Thank you very much, Teresa. As Teresa said, my name is Jonathan, and I am thrilled to talk to all of you about AI today because, as all of you well know, it's probably the reason you're here, AI has become the world's biggest buzzword of 2023. Much with all big technical bubbles and exciting new developments, there's a lot of really foundationally exciting and different and hopefully valuable new things coming out of the generative AI revolution. And there's also a lot of hype. One of the things that I view my job to be, both here at Quorum and with our customers, is to first really understand what our users need and want, and then second, figure out what's actually possible or not possible. I'll share a little bit as we go on in this presentation about a little bit of our kind of the way that we think about AI and the value of technology as something that enables our customers to be successful, but not something that is totally replacing or changing the day-to-day value that our users are providing to their organizations within government affairs. So without further ado, here's our agenda for today. Part number 1, I'm going to talk through what AI even is. Everybody talks about it, but my goal is to provide a minimally technical overview of when we're talking about AI, what is it? How is it different than all the other software tools you hear about each and every day? I promise I will do zero math. My machine learning courses way back in college were lots of math, but understanding how it works at a high level is completely not necessary to go into that at all. Second, how might AI impact government affairs? This, as I mentioned, is something that lots of us are talking about. And I have had a series of different conversations with our users and different folks in this market to understand, what are they excited about? What are they worried about? What kinds of applications are interesting to them? So we'll talk about that next. And then third, we'll talk a little bit about Quorum, and we'll talk about what's on our roadmap, what is already possible and what's not yet possible that we're excited about for the future, but isn't something that we're going to release today because it might not be possible yet. And then finally, we'll end with some time for Q&A. So part number 1, what is AI anyway? At the very highest level, the way that I describe the difference between an AI-based software system like ChatGPT or like any of the fancy new things that are in the market right now versus every other piece of software that has ever been built is the difference between how user input, the code that software engineers write, and the output that users see interact with one another. In a standard piece of software, think Microsoft Word. You type the letter A. The code that software engineers have written takes in the signal from the fact that you type the letter A, looks at the text that it's storing in its internal database for you of the sentence that you're writing, says, oh, I should append or add A to the end of that sentence, and then I should display it on the screen so that you can see it. The input interacts with the code, which talks back and forth to the data and then displays it for the end user. Quorum is a pretty complicated piece of software, but at the end of the day, that's really it. There's what users do, there's what our engineers do, there's the data we have, and then there's what our users see. And the AI-based software systems are a little bit different. When a user is interacting with an AI-based system, instead of directly interacting with the code that software engineers write code that generates a model, which is a thing that works by itself to take user inputs and turn it into something that a user will eventually see. And the big difference there is that with code, if there's a bug, it's either the user did something wrong, the code is wrong, the data is wrong, or we displayed it wrong. In the world of an AI system, usually if something goes wrong, it's in the AI model. It's in this piece of this thing that was created by code based on data, but wasn't directly created by a person. And so the reason we call these things artificially intelligent is because they are thinking, really you'll understand in a second, using math to make basic decisions about different inputs and outputs on their own. And so if an AI system does something weird, it's often very hard to understand why, because the computer is doing the interaction with the user all by itself. So what are some types of AI applications? This next couple of things, I'm going to largely be talking about non-generative AI applications. Basically, what was state of the art 2 years ago versus today. And there's 4 big applications of AI that you see all the time in the market. The first is something called classification. Classification is trying to organize information where you have previously received labeled data. So you have all of the Yelp reviews of a restaurant, and you know that based on the thumbs up or thumbs down for each of those reviews, whether or not the person liked the restaurant. And you can then take the text they wrote and try and predict, is this going to be a thumbs up or a thumbs down? We're going to break it up into a different group. This is the single most common application of AI. It's used in all kinds of different tools that you might use. It's used in Quorum today. We have some AI models where we predict the issue areas that bills fall into so that we can make it easier for clients to go through things. But it also allows other things that you might have heard about in this market, like what's the probability that this bill is going to pass? You're sorting bills based on their text and other characteristics into a pass or not pass, and giving the probability that it'll fall into either bucket. Or maybe more in a kind of stakeholder engagement application, given what we know about an individual, should they go into our organization's tier 1 group or tier 2 group? Regression is very similar to classification, but this one is, instead of predicting a categorical A, B, or C, it's predicting a number. Regression is super common in the sciences. As Teresa mentioned, my background prior to starting Quorum almost 10 years ago now was in computational biochemistry. Super interesting and something that I miss all the time. But a lot of, in the sciences, you think about regression, trying to predict, given what we know about a protein, what is the, what's the output of this protein going to be? But maybe in government affairs, you might want to predict what open rate an email might receive, or how much money a PAC donor might give, assuming that you talk to them. 2 other types that you might have heard of. Another is recommendation. You might have heard of the Netflix Prize a couple of years ago, where Netflix put out some crazy amount of money for people to try and use user information and the patterns of other users to predict whether or not what other things that a given user might like. This is something we don't do in Quorum because it requires you to mix data between customers or between users in order to build these recommendation models, and that's not something that we think is ethically correct to do in our market. But this is applications like, when other users like me track this bill, what other bills did they track? Or when other users like me set up this email alert, what other things might they have done? And this is a very, very powerful, but a lot of the concerns around data mixing between different users and all of a sudden, some patterns popping up from somebody else's usage come from kind of recommendation style modeling. And then the last is clustering. Everything I've mentioned up to this point uses what's called labeled data, which is you have both the data, here's the text of the Yelp review, and the output. Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? But sometimes you don't have the thumbs up or thumbs down. And so clustering allows you to look at the world where you don't have a lot of data, a lot of labeled data. You just have a bunch of information and you can go into that soup and try and organize it. So what other bills are similar to this bill? Which other legislators are similar to this legislator? Usually it has similar things, similar kinds of applications in clustering. So then what's generative AI? ChatGPT, Bard, all of these things that everybody's talking about. Why? You saw in my previous slide, AI has been around since the 50s, and it really kind of caught fire in the 70s. That's a long time ago. Why are we talking about this so much right now? And that's because generative AI is a whole new type of AI application. It's not like any of the other four we just talked about. And how it works is this. You give it a sentence, write me a sentence, you give it an input, write me a sentence. That input goes into the AI model and generates an output. Maybe usually one word or token at a time. Maybe the sentence starts with the, great, okay. And then you take both, write a sentence and you put that back into the AI model and it predicts the next word. Oh, now a good next word would be quick. Okay, then we take that and we put that back in the AI model, the quick brown. And you notice that because this AI model has learned about, through the internet, about the most common sentence on the internet, the quick brown dog jumped over the lazy fox, right? Everybody has heard that back in their typing classes in 4th grade. But the thing that is different about this is that it is the iterative nature of this allows you to create novel context. And as you'll see in the second, the scale of these applications is dramatically improved the quality of and the complexity of what they're able to generate. But the thing that you should keep in your head about ChatGPT or Bard or any generative AI tool you've ever heard of is all they're doing is taking the words they have so far and predicting the next word. It's not self-aware. It doesn't know what's going on. It's a math equation calculating the probability of, given these 6 sentences, what would the next word be? And then given these 6 sentences in one word, what would the next word be over and over and over again? And there's some astoundingly interesting applications of that, but at its core, it's a very simple idea. The last thing that I wanted to explain before we talk a little bit about how this might apply to our market is all of these slides, I've had this purple box AI model, right? Which is doing this magical prediction or magical classification or magical whatever for us. And I wanted to talk just at a very high level about what that black box, that AI model is. Most of these AI models, including all of the generative AI models you've heard about, are what are called neural networks, which at the end of the day are really, really big math problems. Here's how it works. Assuming that you have a trained data set, a trained model, you take some data, you vectorize that data, which means you turn it into numbers. And then you pass that number into a series of different decision points. Every single dot that you see here is just doing math. It says, if I get a 7, and if I get a number and it's greater than 7, put it into the highest node. If it's less than 7, put it into the bottom node. Or if it's a 3, put it into the middle node. And then it goes through and it does that math, which often is very, very basic equations, over and over and over again across lots and lots of different permutations. Training is the process of teaching each of those different nodes. Again, each node is kind of a math decision point. What numbers what it should be thinking about when it's looking at data coming into it. And the more nodes and the more data, the more complicated, the less predictable, and potentially the more powerful this model could be. This fake example that I'm going to go through here, which is trying to predict, given a piece of data, a sentence, is it positive, neutral, or negative? Very classic sentiment analysis, is very basic. It's 6 layers and 88 connections or parameter. The reason I call them parameters is that each of these different nodes is making a decision based on a variable that it figures out over time. That's a very basic example. GPT-4 from OpenAI has 96 layers, way wider, and 1 trillion parameters. It's way bigger. It's learned so much more about the world. But before we can use our model, we have to train our model. What that means is, in this case, I am doing a basic example of classification. So let's say I have a bunch of Yelp reviews, great experience, everyone loved it, terrible service, food wasn't good, we'll come back, fine, not great, not worth it, right? And I already know whether these are positive, negative, or neutral. I then vectorize or turn all of these into numbers. And then I put them through my model again and again and again, iteratively, and what happens every time is we look at how good the model is at predicting the values that we already gave it. And then we try again, and we futz with the parameters, kind of the settings of each of these different dots each and every time. And you do it once, you do it twice, you do it 3 times. Many of the models that I've built for Quorum or for other tools have had to go through thousands and thousands and thousands of iterations to get this math right. And the other thing is that the larger number of examples that you have and the bigger complexity of your network, the more difficult and expensive this process is. GPT-4, which again is the model powering ChatGPT from OpenAI, used a petabyte of examples, which you might have heard of a gigabyte, you might have heard of a terabyte. A petabyte is 10,000 times larger than a terabyte. It is a giant amount of data. It's basically the whole intranet of text is what they pushed into their model, and they trained it for a long time, and it cost them over $100 million just to run the servers that built out this network. So then once we have this network, we've taught each dot what its parameters are. We then can take something that wasn't in our original training set, like we loved it, wasn't there, and turn it into numbers. The word we maps to 16, let's say, love turns to 2455, and it turns to 98. We put that into our system, and every node makes a decision about what next node it should go to, and eventually we end up at positive. We never saw that data before, but because the system learned, maybe one of these nodes learned that loved is a positive thing. Great, and that's how it figured it out at the end. Or maybe you got a terrible dinner kind of comment. You vectorize that into 62021 or 98,822, and maybe the system learned that terrible or 6221 is a bad thing, and maybe the third node learned that and used that to make decisions about how it should be processed down the road. We end up with negative. Obviously, the generative AI applications that we're talking about here are dramatically more complicated. But at the end of the day, all that AI tools are is building a lot of very simple decision makers, each individual math equation, with each having its own setting, using training data to figure out that what setting it should have, and then passing information once you're done training back through that system in order to get a final answer. So that's how it works. A little complicated, definitely much bigger, and there's a whole area of science and math and everything else that goes into this beyond my presentation here. But I hope that this provides you at least a little bit of context about, is AI going to take over the world? Well, all it's doing is it's predicting words. Could that be bad? Potentially. Could that, turn into, the Terminator series? Probably not. And so hopefully this helps inform kind of how these systems work and think a little bit about what some of the applications might be. So then let's go there next. How might we use AI in government affairs? And I think the big thing here is that my goal, again and again, it doesn't matter whether it's AI, it doesn't matter whether it's building software tools, it doesn't matter whether it's leveraging and finding more data to help our customers be more effective. At the end of the day, my goal is has always been the same. We want technology to be as good as it humanly can at the things technology is good at. And we want our users, people, to be as good as possible at the things that people are good at. And those two things are not the same. There is no AI system that is ever going to be able to replicate the ability of our users to sit down and have a conversation and understand the exact push and pull of a conversation with a legislator, of the things that matter to them and the things that don't matter to them, and figure out the right solution to have them be comfortable with co-sponsoring a particular piece of legislation. Maybe AI can help find all of the background information that you need to help that conversation go faster, or help you craft your narrative of schedule, like in the email that you want to send to schedule that meeting. Or maybe it'll help you summarize the data that you collected so that you can go and look at it more quickly, so you can have more of these conversations. Technology is good at doing things fast, doing things consistently, and doing things at high scale. Humans are good at so many more things than technology could ever be good at. And so again and again, when we think about AI or technology in general, we think about it as how we can best empower our customers and our users, not come up with something that sounds cool. People always ask me, like, when are you going to predict whether bills are going to pass? And I'm like, well, that's never going to happen, because that's never going to work unless you always say they fail, in which case you're correct, 96% of the time. But that's an example of how we think about empowering our users, not just doing things to do them. So I've had a series of conversations with Quorum users over the last couple of months as AI has become more and more popular. And a couple of insights that have come from that is that there are three big buckets of things that I've heard from customers that they want us to do with AI for them. Bucket number one is text generation, more broadly. For example, I'd like to suggest a list of topics to include in an email and have a draft written for me. Or I'd like to help my advocates write better grassroots messages that are more customized, so that they aren't just writing the same message every time. I'd like to generate better copy for advocacy campaigns so that more advocates might participate. Or I wrote up bullet points for my meeting, but I'd like a full couple of paragraphs about this so I can send it off to the board. I'd like to make more full meeting summaries based on my bullet point notes. All of these things are types of things that I've heard from users that boil down at the end of the day into generating text, which makes sense. It's generative AI. A second bucket that I've heard from customers is that they want to find information more easily. For example, I'd like to see how many interactions we had in a particular issue last week, or I'd like to see which people we haven't engaged with in the last month, or I'd like to see what tweets our AI stakeholders sent in the last week, or I'd like to find bills that would create a child poverty task force, or I'd like to find donors to my PAC potential donors to my PAC that have given to us in previous years but didn't give it to us last year. And really what I hear here is the power of technology to make us faster. And to do things more easily at scale. And this is, and I found this trend of people talking about this as a thing they want to do very, very interesting, because this is something that is a core value prop of technology generally. And it's clear that we as technologists haven't done a great job making these kinds of searches as easy as they possibly could. And maybe AI has an opportunity to improve that. Third bucket, summarize data. I'd like to summarize the key themes of our interactions from the last week. I'd like to see a summary of AI bills. I'd like to summarize tweets about the debt ceiling. I'd like to summarize changes between these two versions of a bill. Lots of requests to summarize data, which really speaks to just the difficulty of our users' jobs and the volume of information that they have to go through in order to inform themselves about all of the different topics that they need to understand. And so a lot of comments around summarization. Big three things: generate text, find data, summarize data are the big three things that we've heard again and again. So what are we going to do about it? Now, again, our goal, we want to help our users do the most possible with as little effort as they can. Make them more efficient, make them have more impact, make them faster at doing their jobs. So here's a couple of things that we are doing very quickly. All of this is not only on our roadmap, but has working proofs of concept and is in many cases in beta. So I'm pretty excited to share what we're doing as a company. But first, just a little bit of context about who we are. So Quorum is a public affairs software company whose goal is to help government affairs organizations do all of the things that they might need to do, whether that's stakeholder engagement, grassroots advocacy, legislative tracking, PAC management, and communications in a single integrated, high quality, really valuable system. We are the best-in-class provider in our market completely because of what our customers have done for us, and across all of our solutions whether it's grassroots advocacy or PAC management or legislative tracking, or the way we think about the value we provide is we help our users map who and what and what kinds of concepts matter to them so that they can kind of understand where they are today, track the legislation or the regulation or the dialogue or the whatever people are saying or thinking about an issue so that you can understand how that map needs to change, actually do something about it through grassroots advocacy or PAC management or direct communication or lobbying or emails or whatever it might be, and then report on what actually happened. We are completely driven by what our customers have told us to do. This is, the value to me of having the conversations I've had again and again with customers is huge because it helps us understand where we need to go. It's the feedback of all of our customers that has helped us build the product we have, and it will help us keep improving. And then finally, we think about our products not just as, oh, great, we've got these 8 products, but we think about them as being built on a core of our core product, our CRM, our dashboards, our Outbox emailing tool, our reporting tools like Sheets, or the ability to create mobilization websites for either PAC or grassroots, the ability to get email alerts, all of the core functionality that every single product depends on, and on the shared data, contact information, legislation, regulation, social media, committee hearings, whatever it might be. And the value that our customers get, whether they buy 1 product or 8 products, is that because all of these products are in the same unified system, when we improve one thing somewhere, it improves everything everywhere. And so just as a comment, we're talking about AI. We use AI all over the place within our data right now. Our data processing pipelines use AI to help break down and organize information, to extract people and concepts from them, to translate the text of audio feeds from committee hearings, to identify who's talking in a video, to predicting what type of an issue a piece of state legislation should fall into, to automatically detect when a particular data feed might be broken, on and on and on. We use a ton of AI. We don't talk about it a lot because it doesn't impact our users, at least in that area. What our users care about is, can I get the committee hearings I want as quickly as possible? Yes, lots of AI making that possible. Should you care? No, you just care about the quality of our data. But where we're starting and what everything we're about to talk about is the generative AI functionality. And that's all in the core product. That's in things that impact every user across all of our products will benefit from these kinds of enhancements. Okay, so what are they? Thing number 1, the taxonomy that I'm using here about our roadmap soon is in the next 3 months. Next is in the next 6 months, though maybe a little. I'm pretty excited about one that's in the next category, so we'll see. And later is 6+ months away, and then not yet is something we're excited about, but we can't do it yet for a variety of technical questions. So thing number 1, people send emails and Outbox through our system all the time. A opt-in feature, and I think the opt-in is really important because we know that some of the privacy concerns around AI, though every one of the AI models that we're using, we will ensure that the agreement that we sign with them states that the data going into it can only be used to do what our customers are doing, not to train it on other things or share it anywhere externally. But even so, this is an example of an opt-in feature. We found that the system is really, really good at looking at emails and understanding how can we improve the engagement of that email? How can we help them, better make more attention-grabbing subject lines or increase the number of clicks on emails? And so this is a feature that is launching. We've already built it. It's in beta right now, and we're launching this very soon. So this is one example of an AI-based tool to that possible. Another thing is that we're going to be launching AI-powered grassroots messages. One of the things that we've heard from our customers is that they want their grassroots advocates to write better and more targeted messages, so that instead of them writing one sample message that an advocate then goes and hits send on. And of course, the best case scenario is that an advocate goes and customizes each message based on their own story. But sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And so how can we then help advocates write even better messages? And so instead of sending one message a million times, can we send 100 messages or 1,000 messages, or many, many more than that? And this is another example of an opt-in feature that we're going to be launching soon, where you just turn on the using AI to customize advocate messages. We'll read the sample text that you provide, come up with a bunch of other examples, and of course the advocate is still in control. They can edit it based on your rules. They can choose to hit submit or not. This is not, we think it's very important that the advocate is still in control, but it's something that that we think will dramatically improve the voice of advocates in our political process. Now, this one's the one I'm really excited about. And if you recall, both of the first two were around kind of the text generation category. This is the big one. This is find quorum in anything with AI. So what we're doing is we're building an AI-powered search to make, and if you know anything about Quorum's tools, you'll know that search is very central to what we do. It's both how you find things, how you build reports, how you send emails, how you create grassroots campaigns, how you build dashboards. Everything comes down to search. And so how are we going to make search better? Well, if we go back and look at what our users were telling us, they wanted to find stuff as quickly as possible. They didn't want to have to go find the filter, click on the filter, figure out the perfect Boolean search right away. They wanted us to try to do it for them already. And so, all of these examples that I'm showing here right now are things that our technology that we've built, and this is also something that is in beta. We're very fired up about this. We think this is going to really, really change the value to our customers in our product. And I actually have a little quick video here of what this looks like in action. So a user here is going in, clicking in to search with our AI-powered engine. Maybe they want to find bills on clean energy that had movement in the last 3 months. And you'll notice that the system automatically predicted for them, okay, clean energy or renewable energy or green energy or sustainable energy and incentives or infrastructure. That's something that the AI tool that is generating for you. And sure, you can now go edit that or improve it or narrow it down however you'd like. But we've seen our users spend so much time having to write these Boolean searches, and it's hard and complicated to do that really, really well. Having a little bit of a jump start where you can say, oh, maybe the next time you run this search in Magic Search, you say, oh, I want to use clean energy relating to wind power, and it'll generate another example for you. The other thing is it's automatically applied that something's happened in the last 3 months filter for you. You didn't have to go find that. We're showing you here that it already was applied. It's already happened. The user here is now going to go back to search again. And this time, instead of searching for bills, let's search for people. Let's search for staff who work for members that sit on Senate Help or House Education, for example. It'll automatically pop into staffer search, and it'll automatically apply the subfilter of people that sit on either of those committees. And it's even smart enough to know what Senate Help is instead of having to type that out all the way. Another example of searching for people, maybe I want to see all the state legislators who sponsored a bill that I supported this year. It's a very easy search in Quorum because our users are going through and saying bills they support or bills that they don't support, but you have to go in and you have to find the filter and think about it. If you want to put a list on your dashboard of here are the state legislators who sponsor bills that I care about, now you just have to type a sentence. You don't have to go and find the filter, click on the filter and everything else. Of course, you still can if that's how you've learned how to use the system. But this is something that we think will open the floodgates for our users to be able to do all of these kinds of activities so much more easily than in the past. Another example, searching in our document set. This is tweets about the debt ceiling, automatically filled in, all of the different all of the different filters, the dates and everything else, and you can go in and build the visualizations or do whatever you want with it. It's so much faster to do this kind of searching than it was in the past. And then finally, looking at our people data set, I want to see who attended our fundraising event. It automatically even was able to pull in your custom fields and know that, if you look at the language here that we used, that this user used in this example, they didn't even have to say, find my custom field named XYZ. We were able to figure it out. Again, this is something that we think is going to dramatically improve the user experience and the speed of our users at being able to find, sort, organize, and report on data in our products. Something that's coming later. We're thinking about this exact same approach everywhere in our product. Not just right now in search, but how do we make texting, emailing, logging interactions, creating dashboards, building visualizations, building exports? How can we make this as users as fast as humanly possible? It's now part of our core ideation process of building out different features and thinking about that as part of our products coming forward. And then something that's not going to happen quite yet. So I mentioned this whole bucket of summarization. And I said, I'm excited about this. I actually think there's when we sat down and looked and wrote kind of in an internal brainstorm, we wrote down 20 different ways we could use AI in our products. And one of the first that popped out was, hey, why don't we use this technology to summarize every piece of state legislation? That's a very hard thing to do. That requires lots of manual effort. That would be really awesome, but there's a problem. And that problem is that right now, most systems, and this is changing really fast. And so even this slide is actually out of date because just last week, ChatGPT announced that they were increasing the amount of text that ChatGPT 3.5 could process by about 4x. And so lots of changes happening here very, very quickly. But if you take a bill, which might be hundreds of pages long, and you put it into ChatGPT or Google's Palm or any of these systems, it'll kind of shrug its shoulders because it's too big to be able for it to process all in one go. And you could, I suppose, try to break it up, but that's not going to work really well. It's just not a very clean system because it's not able to understand big, long, chunky pieces of text. And in order to do the summarization well, if you go back and look at the kinds of requests we're getting from our users, they want to say, summarize all the tweets that have ever talked about X, summarize all the bills that cover this. That's not one bill, that's lots of bills, right? And so we think that this is an area where the technology will continue to mature. And there are definitely some very exciting applications, but based on just this hard limit, and there's other reasons too, you're not going to see a summarization feature from us right away, though it's definitely something we're very much keeping our eyes on. So with that, that's the content that I wanted to cover today. We have some time here for Q&A, and so thank you for asking questions so far along in this presentation. I'm going to go through and answer some of them. So one of the first questions is what reads, what are some of the ethical concerns that you have with AI in general? I think this is a really important question because we at Quorum take the privacy and confidentiality and security of our customers' information extraordinarily seriously. That's information security and privacy are some of the functions that report up into me, and they are very, very fundamental to who we are and how we think about protecting our customers' information. In terms of what ethical concerns do I have, I think there are a few. One, and I would say they fall into two broad categories. The first category is things that are already ethically questionable, obviously so, that already happen, are now easier to do better. So for example, in grassroots advocacy, there's a known problem in the market where bots try to create millions and millions of fake people and fake messages to ultimately be sent to members of Congress to try and influence discussion on that topic. The famous example was around the net neutrality case, where one of the providers in this market processed millions of fake messages that came in through some of these bots. Nobody likes that. That is, a perversion of our democratic process and of enabling real advocates' voices to be heard. Our system has lots of protections to identify and to block, and has identified and has blocked many of these kinds of attacks. Now, what does AI, generative AI, allow for these kinds of attacks? Well, now instead of having one version of the text, you could have a million, right? And so there are definitely some ethical concerns about doing the things that are already bad worse. And we're definitely keeping our eye on those. And the second big bucket, I think, comes around privacy, because the initial versions of some of these AI models said in their terms of service, which we look at very, very closely, that any data presented to them could be used for further training. And I understand why, as training data is the currency of the AI world. But we're not willing to use any systems for which that's the case. And fortunately, as some of these companies have matured, the rules and systems that they're building around protecting customer data have also matured. And so that's something that we are looking at very closely and think is very important. If you're going to use our AI tools, you can rest certain that we are, ourselves protecting the information that you're entrusting to us through our technical security, through our legal security systems, through all of the audits and everything else that we do, and also that we have selected vendors that take that security just as seriously as we do, and we put them through a pretty significant process and sign agreements with them to ensure that that is the case. All right. There was a related question of how long do we hold on to the data from these tools? Similar question, similar thing. We hold on to this data for just long enough for our kind of regulatory requirements. Generally, kind of user-provided information is flushed out of our system every 90 days, and while it's there, it's stored in secure logs that are appropriately sequestered from standard team members. On and on and on. I can answer more questions along those lines if we have more questions about kind of our information security policies and practices. Can I share how AI is trained to determine what is fake news or real news? How does political or ideological bias factor into this training? Short answer, it doesn't. I mean, it isn't trained to determine the difference between real data and fake data. And political and ideological bias doesn't factor into the training, which means that it shows up in the output. And this is another concern around AI is, will AI kind of effectively what ChatGPT did is it ate the internet and now it regurgitates the internet back out at you, right? And there are things on the internet that are not good and not true. And AI cannot tell you the difference between them. And I think this is, if you look at the tools that we're building, we are not thinking about this as, let's go generate a giant amount of text, or let's go and try and fully automate all these things. Our users still need to be in charge, and there are certain types of applications like our search functionality that I'm so excited about that don't really like that. Like what we're asking it to do actually is to, in the system that we've built is to, react to the structure of the filters in our system and pick the right ones, basically. And it's a little bit more of a narrow application. And so I think that's a very important question. And it's something that I think the industry, and thinking about the impact on our political environment, if random person on the internet is talking to ChatGPT about who they should vote for, they're not necessarily going to get true or correct answers. We hope that they would, but these systems they don't actually understand the world. They're just predicting the world. And so it's a little complicated. Could I briefly explain predictive AI and the difference between generative AI and predictive AI? So predictive AI is, I would say the difference between these terms is that predictive AI is the first 4 buckets that I described. Given data about a bill, predict the issue area that it should fall into. Given data about a bill, predict whether or not it should pass. Given data about a person, predict what list they should be on, or predict whether they be your friend or not. Whereas generative AI is much more given information, make new information, right? Like given this sentence, generate more. Both have their, as I mentioned on an earlier slide, both have a lot of value in our systems, right? For example, all of the prediction that we do, you might know that we collect more committee hearings. We track more committee hearings than anybody else in the market in terms of both first, kind of an AI-based transcription that happens very quickly after a committee hearing finishes at the federal level, and then a manually corrected one that is submitted for a large number of committees within 24 hours after that point in time. We use AI completely for that first step. And is it perfect? No, but does it, by predicting what it thinks the right words are, does it enable our customers to get email alerts that their brand was mentioned in a committee hearing way faster than otherwise? Absolutely. Or when we predict which person is talking based on the picture in the video, that's also super valuable. And so I think the thing to know about both of them is that both predictive AI and generative AI can be wrong. I think it's harder to tell when generative AI is wrong because it's just making a sentence versus giving you a categorical answer. But these are tools. They're valuable tools, but they're not perfect tools. And understanding the limitations is part of our job so that we use them in the right places in our software where those limitations are either not as relevant. Like, if we're doing a fast transcription and our goal is to do it as quickly as possible. Yeah. The fact that some of the punctuation isn't going to be right away. Oh, well, we got the data as fast as possible, but we have a correction mechanism of the manual one. Great. So there's a lot of different questions there. On the AI for advocate messages, who reviews the messages being generated and how does that process work? You as the user can view all the different messages that are generated and see if you're comfortable with them. If you're not, turn it off. Eventually we'll have some more functionality around selecting and deleting individual ones. But that process works by, we take your draft, we feed it into the system, both your draft for the subject line and the actual body text of the message. We make a lot of different versions of it that both you and the advocate can then review. Will the Find Anything in Quorum with AI update legislator and staffer lists in real time or with every election cycle? The really wonderful thing about all of these systems is that they're built on top of the products and systems that we already have. Quorum has an in-house staff of several dozen people through our subsidiary KnowWho, who is the single best provider of contact information for elected officials worldwide, not just in the US at the federal, state, and local levels, but also in 30+ countries around the globe. And we have, as I mentioned, dozens of people that are busily collecting and organizing and updating this information every single day. And then on the kind of dialogue and legislation and everything else, we have thousands and millions of different scrapers that are pulling in this information, or people that are entering this data for us across all kinds of different systems all the time. And the nice thing about search for anything with AI is it's only looking at the filters. So it's not depending on kind of ChatGPT was trained in 2021 and that's all it knows. It only knows 2021. We don't have to retrain our data set to give you better data because it's based on the always updating live information in our product at every point in time. Can AI summarize congressional hearings by reviewing the recording of the hearing? Very soon. That's what I mentioned by summarization. A committee hearing is usually a couple dozen pages long. Sometimes longer, the ones that run into the multiple hours can be 100+ pages long. The longest context windows right now are about 30 pages, which means that a short committee hearing could be doable right now. A long committee hearing is not doable. Generally, we like to release features when we think that they can work across the vast majority of cases rather than kind of edge cases now and again. And so that's an example of something that we are not doing yet. Do I believe it is possible to replicate this functionality to other countries? Absolutely. You might know Quorum already tracks contact information and social media of legislators and people in the executive branch of over 30 countries. We are starting to launch legislation in many of these countries this year, and we're going to be doing that for more and more. And like I said, this is in the core product. AI-based search in the core product impacts every product, including our international product. And so great answers, great opportunities there. Have we considered doing a webinar that teaches people how to ask the right questions for AI? Absolutely. I think particularly as we launch this functionality, right now, the way to get good at searching in Quorum is learning our filters really well and really understanding how to do the boolean searching in a really advanced way. Our goal with this is to lower the barrier to entry. And so it's easier for anyone to be able to just write a sentence and find what they're looking for. And that's very, very important. And so, but that's going to have its own goods and bads and complexities and things to learn. And our job of our customer success team is to teach our customers how to best get value out of and be successful using our products. So we will absolutely do webinars and build training materials and things in Quorum School and everything else for all of that. All right. Read grassroots AI tools. I see the value via convenience, but I'm concerned with losing the grassroots authenticity in the process. Can you speak at this all through your platform? So what I can tell you is that there are different strategies in grassroots. Some people want to generate the largest volume possible, in which case, honestly, this AI thing doesn't really change how much volume you generate. It increases the number of messages that you might send, the number of different messages, but it's not really going to change the number of advocates that click on the button. Writing them good emails might, but that's not really the goal. There's a feature in Quorum and in Phone to Action where you can force advocates to edit something, where you can say, look, I'm going to write you a draft, but it's your job as a user, as an advocate, to modify it and add your own story, go. And we block you from submitting unless you've edited it. And so if that's important to you, those features still work and are still part of it. Just the number of different drafts, if you had the feature turned on, that the advocates would see would be higher. All right. Is there the ability to have AI flag timestamps in state legislative committee hearings when your organization is mentioned, so you don't have to listen to hours of irrelevant hearings? So right now, our committee hearing coverage is only at the federal level, simply because it's a little too expensive for us right now to expand that out to the states. It is something that we're very interested in, and if we doing that is something that we've had on our let's figure that out roadmap for a while, and so. If that is a feature that is particularly interesting to you, it is absolutely something in our roadmap that we are interested in. Absolutely something that is in our wheelhouse of something that we could do well. I'm looking. I am actually looking for customers to help us defray some of the costs of doing that at scale in all 50 states. So please check in with your customer success manager if you'd like to talk more about that. I think that's very interesting. Let me see. All right. There are a couple other questions here that I think relate to some of the other topics we've talked about. We've talked about bias. and the concerns that we have and that our customers have around bias within these algorithms, certainly true. They're a reflection of the world, unfortunately, and the world has plenty of bias in it. We've talked about some of the the value of these different pieces of functionality, and I think just to summarize, this is an extraordinarily new area of technology. This has changed an incredible amount in 6 months, and it's going to change an incredible amount again 6 months from now. We are, very interested in this. We are clearly launching multiple pieces of functionality here. There's also pieces of functionality that are obvious that don't work yet, like the summarization that we intend to launch soon, as soon as they're possible. And so I just appreciate you all coming to this webinar. This is obviously something that we're very interested in. If you have additional questions, please do reach out to our team. We'd love to talk more about all of these topics. They're very important.